An Australian father appearing on the ABC TV's Q&A recently became a viral sensation when he asked the following question.
I recently got a rent increase notice for an additional $180 a week, which works out to be about 10 grand a year. I try to find a cheaper place and there just aren't any. What little is available, there's dozens of people lined up. Lots of them are immigrants and they have plenty more money than I can possibly get. I'm already working 2 jobs. One more rent increase and my family, my 1-year-old baby, we're facing homeless. We've got nowhere to go. My family's already been forced out of Sydney for the same reasons. I want to know, is the government going to cut immigration to match housing availability, or are we just going to keep going until every regular working Australian is homeless?
Replying to the young father, Federal Health Minister Mark Butler and Climate Change Authority head Matt Keane rehashed tired boilerplate about the situation being complex.
We have been working very hard to get immigration levels down to something we think the country can manage.
Sydney particularly has become a place that so many people can't live in anymore.
Yeah,
Is it an immigration issue? Because a lot of people are raising...
Well, I think it's more complex than that. That is one...
But the situation is not complex at all. According to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, across the past 2 years under the current government, the number of working people who have become homeless has risen by 66%. Homelessness New South Wales reports that of those seeking support in the 2023-24 financial year, almost 20% of those were employed. 70% of the employed homeless are women and 39% are aged between 18 and 34. Labor's failure to manage migration has created an underclass of working homeless citizens. This crisis is not an accident. In 2022, Anthony Albanese, along with Jim Chalmers, attended a Jobs and Skills Summit in Canberra with business and university leaders. They lobbied the government to lift the permanent migration ceiling and relax working restrictions on international students. The PM and the Treasurer complied. In February, just last month, 200,000 international students flooded the country, a figure that is 15% higher than the corresponding month last year. When the population equivalent of Hobart is landing in Australia in the space of a month, we shouldn't be surprised when Australian citizens cannot find a rental. These statistics are simply abstractions on a spreadsheet for the business and university leaders who pushed for such increases, but for those being squeezed out of the housing market, the reality is existential. Not being able to afford rent means that young people are not starting businesses, it means couples are not having babies, and it means an entire generation of essential workers is being driven out of the cities in which they work. Placing our recent immigration figures in context, the economics writer Tarek Brooker points out that in 2024, Australia's population was growing at a rate of 2.05%. That's double the growth rate of Western Europe, even after the Ukraine war sent hundreds of thousands of refugees westward. Brooker says that population growth of 2% is the highest level of per capita migration in Australian history, outside the returning servicemen and women following the First World War. Why is anyone surprised we continue to have a housing crisis? To keep pace with current migration levels, Australia would need to build 255,000 new dwellings every year. In 2024, 177,700 dwellings were built, leaving a catastrophic shortfall of more than 77,000 homes in a single year. With international students now arriving at a rate that is 15% higher than in 2024, the 2025 housing deficit is set to explode even further. So who exactly is benefiting from this? Well, to understand who is reaping the rewards from this system, we have to return to the Skills Summit of 2022, in which Albanese and Chalmers were pressured by lobbyists to open the floodgates. The biggest profiteers from this system are our tertiary institutions. Universities in Australia have largely become visa mills, charging the highest visa fees in the world. It represents a $14 billion industry. Australia's university administrators take home 7-figure salaries, some of the highest in the world. The average vice-chancellor of one of our visa mills gets paid almost double what the Prime Minister takes home, while more and more working Australians sleep in their cars. Big business also relentlessly lobbies for higher migration as well, citing a perpetual skills shortage as justification. The evidence regarding an apparent skills shortage, however, tells a different story. Research from the economic think tank E61 has shown that Australia's migration program actually harms our productivity, contrary to what corporate interests usually claim. Their analysis found that migrant workers are more likely to work in lower productivity industries, and within industries, they are more likely to work at lower productivity firms. This is a trend that appears to have worsened over the decade to 2020. What this means is that migrants with engineering degrees are not necessarily working in startups, creating innovative new products, but are more likely to be driving Ubers and doing other low-skilled jobs that ordinary Australians could do. This is why Australia's productivity remains stagnant despite our record-breaking immigration. While the Coalition is seeking a cap on foreign students pegged at 30 to 35% of the total student population, government intervention needs to go further. In the short term, migration needs to be capped at levels that match housing availability, and voters must demand that our governments prioritise the housing security of Australian citizens over university profits and corporate interests. Australia's democracy depends on restoring the social contract that rewards work with basic dignity. Either we control our borders to match our infrastructure capacity, or we continue the slide towards becoming a country where full-time work is no guarantee against homelessness. The choice should be obvious, but our leaders seem determined to make the wrong one. This video is based on an op-ed that I wrote for the Australian newspaper that was published on Friday, the 22nd of March. To read more of my work for The Australian, go to theaustralian.com.au and subscribe. Thanks for watching.